All right, y'all. Welcome back this week. We are heading into part two of our frankly just so juicy, amazing dive into the book, The Tragedy of Heterosexuality by Jane Ward. And in this part two, really getting to dive into more of the deeper personal aspects. Last week was a lot about the history. Now we're going to come into what it actually feels like to live right now in the system. And just like we did with last week's episode, we saw things happen in the US this week with the ICE raids, literally watching ICE agents walking down neighborhood streets.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this episode just I told Quinn, I was like, I cannot go into this episode without also saying at the start of this, what we're seeing in America right now ties in to this whole episode because the heart of what we want this episode to be is a call to how we do it different, which I think Jane Ward's book does so
Mhm.
beautifully. This, like, yes, there is all of this pain and dysfunction. And although we are fated to be here at this time, which, like you said, Quinn, like people are throwing around, like, how do we leave the country? I have thought, how do I leave the country? How do we
Yeah.
get out? How do we get away from a world that is
Yeah.
not aligned with our values? And hopefully, this episode being a call to how we choose to ride those waves and step up into creating our collective destiny.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think what I'm seeing on the national level is this desire of certain powers wanting to control, intense,
Mhm.
intense control of the narrative of what it looks like to be American. And within our marriages and within heterosexuality, there's also a lot of control that likes to happen by certain people in power, that this
Mhm.
is the way it has to be. And I think both your clients questioning, do I stay or do I go? Or my clients who are trying to learn to thrive when heterosexuality is what is for them.
Yeah.
I hope that this episode we're able to acknowledge this is the system we're in and how do we best resource ourselves and thrive and move through this. I feel like last episode, it was kind of this gut punch to me as I came to realize the system that had been built that I was a part of that I didn't understand. And coming to
Mhm.
that understanding, it gives me different choices and
Yes.
different clarity. And so that's what I'm hoping that our listeners get from this time. It's like, oh, I
Ye
do have choices. I can move in this way.
yes, not only do you have choices, but, like, holy shit, this is the time.
Yeah.
This is the time here in the US. I think it's definitely for those of you that are international listeners, you're seeing it too. Like, this is a time where we as individuals get to choose either to move more into the heart, into loving ourselves, into loving our neighbors, into loving humans, or
Yeah.
further into hate, into the
Mhm.
fear and the divisiveness, and really providing in this episode the framework and hopefully the empowerment that, like,
Mhm.
yeah, it really is up to us, and there are many of us doing it.
Yeah.
So,
I think one of the interesting aspects that you and I bring to this is that we both came from very conservative, trad wife, religious backgrounds, politically conservative as well. And we have traversed a journey of opening to the humanity
ah,
of a diversity of people and ways of thinking and not being as focused on survival of the one family or the one person.
or the one group of people.
Yes, that deserve to live or deserve to
Yes.
have rights. And so I think that we have a unique story to tell as we have walked this path. We didn't start here.
No.
This has been a process. We were the trad wives. We were the, you
The
know,
upholders of misogyny and
yes,
patriarchy.
shaming women to keep them in their place. Yeah, that was me raising our children to do the same.
Yes, on my end, as I've talked about in the podcast before, against gay marriage, just
Mhm.
drank the Kool-Aid, bathed in
Yeah,
it, brainwashed in it since birth. And
yeah,
in coming out the other side into this other world, the world that I realized that's why I loved Jane Ward's book is the queer world, the world of like embracing diversity, embracing differences, we don't all just have to fit into these boxes and these roles so that everybody can feel safe. Safety comes
yes.
from within, and safety comes from community and loving each other. And I just, such an incredible path that we're hopefully going to help now really take you through more of that journey, the ins and outs of what it feels like to be in the system in your personal life, what it's like for women, what it's like for men, because that was the other thing we wanted this episode to do,
Yeah,
was to really help us all understand that this is not a men versus women thing, especially in the
mhm,
US right now. This is people who want certain humans to not be considered human, to not have equal rights, to not have some of the foundational things that, as we've come out of our privilege, and we're still not even out, guys, we still have privilege and we're still
so much.
dissecting and
Yeah,
waking up to all of that, we then get the opportunity to use that privilege for what I consider to be good, to be
yeah,
the collective destiny I want us to move towards too. So I want you to start us with a quote from Jane Ward's book.
okay,
The first section of this quote, we're going to give you the first part of this quote before we dive in. And then at the very end of the episode, we'll finish it off.
okay. Queer people, and dykes in particular, are keen observers of the tragedy of heterosexuality, and we are already engaged in the work of alliance. As pro choice activists, sex educators, staff at women's centers, rape crisis advocates, and confidants for straight women in distress, we would not be doing this work if we didn't know that another way is possible.
Yes. So why we're starting
Right?
with this quote, yes, at the beginning of this episode, right? The episode called The Cost of the Lie, right? Waking up to all of this is starting with this beacon of hope that I felt like I received through Jane Ward's book, especially at the end, of realizing, even as as someone coming out of a privileged, white, heterosexual world, am feeling like, oh my God, my world is collapsing. There are all these people in the queer, Black and brown, immigrant communities that have already been doing this work. And that gives me so much hope. It
Yes.
makes me
I
like, oh
love
my
where
God.
she points out how they're doing the work of helping in the tragedy of heterosexuality, but like they are working as allies, helping us already. And we may not even recognize it,
Yep.
but they recognize it. And they're there for us already.
In our heterosexual programming, we think we need to be helping them. And I loved that in this book, she's like, no, y'all, like it's good over here. We're looking at y'all being like, are you okay? Because it looks
Yes.
bad. Which is another thing that I wanted to start off this episode with and just totally vibe the fuck out on with you is the movie To Wong Fu. Have you watched it yet, Quinn?
I have not. I'm
I
so
love it so much that
sorry.
Quinn hasn't watched this yet because she will now get to, with all the rest of you, get to enjoy this movie. But if you have not watched this movie, total magic. It came up in our community this last week.
Mhm.
Do you remember the discussion? It was so adorable. We were like, who's your
Who's your celebrity crush? And someone said Patrick Swayze, and you should see him. I mean, the way he moves his body, his mother was a dance instructor. And so he was cast as a drag queen in this film that I
yes.
had never heard of.
I had never heard of it either. One of the women in the community was like, "You have to go watch it." I literally watched it that night, and God, I love Joe so much because 'cause I'm sitting next to him, like, every other word being like, "Oh my god, I love this movie so much. I love this movie so much," because it was like, imagine somebody reading The Tragedy of Heterosexuality and then creating a film to now granted, hers has, a lot deeper, but just getting to see the way queer culture is so much kinder to women,
Mm,
so
mm,
much more elevated and nuanced. And
yeah.
this contrast between the women from the straight heterosexual world and the, as we're going to talk about later in the episode, the just like boringness of that reality. So, if you're
Uh-huh.
wanting a fun visual taste of what these last two episodes have been about, go watch that movie. It will do it for you. So, the quote that we were talking about emphasizes that this work is already happening. There are people that are figuring these pieces out. But
Mhm.
we wanted to start by dropping in to what it feels like for those of us in straight culture, in a culture that is deadening our desire, that is dampening our truth, and disorienting us as women to ourselves.
Yeah.
And really spending some time at the beginning being with you all in what I think for you and I is kind of, it does feel like a lot of our past. You and I live in a very open and more free life now
Mhm.
because of the
Yeah.
choices we've made. But
Mhm.
back when we were in our marriages, the the toll that living in a world that was telling you you need to be a certain way and it needs to look a certain way, and no matter what you're doing, it is not looking like that, really kind of dropping back in with you to what it felt like to feel numb and lonely and to constantly be having to take over responsibility for everybody else's feelings, feeling
Mm.
sexually dried up and having all this like, I don't want to be touched. I don't want desire. And hearing other women that do and thinking, what's wrong with me? Am I broken? And
Mhm.
believing deep down there is something wrong with me. I must be too much. And contorting ourselves in that culture
Yeah.
to keep trying to be smaller, smaller, smaller.
Mhm. I think
Yeah.
for me, one of the most significant messages from that time is the first thought I would have when I would wake up in the morning is, I wish I was dead. Not that I wanted to kill myself, I just wish I hadn't woken up. And then I
Hmm.
would go back to sleep. I would try to sleep as much as I could. I mean, my life was so deeply exhausting beyond the physical labor of it. But now, th that thought sometimes comes up, but now that's a tell that I'm
Mm,
under-resourced. Now I know what that is. But I will go months and months and years without
yeah.
having that message just spontaneously pop up in my mind. And now I know what to do with it. At the time, I thought I must be genuinely doing something wrong because, especially within Mormonism, they have what's called the plan of happiness, which is essentially give us your money and fuck your husband and like
Raise
in the fun
children.
way. And not like fuck your husband, but like fuck your husband and have a bunch of children, teach them to do the same. And the breaking point for me was really when my children were starting to leave the house. My oldest son was serving a Mormon mission. And I was like, this is the future in store for my children. And
Mm,
I'm supposed to think that this will be a good thing for them. And I could not, body and soul, say, I want this life for my children. Like,
mm,
independent of my marriage, I
yeah.
didn't want the tragedy of heterosexuality. I had different ideas of what my son was capable of doing and what I wanted for my daughters. I wanted my
Yep.
daughters to get married and have more children, and I want my son, he had a scholarship, he's going to go and I want him to do this and then he's going to find a wife. And it was all very laid out as to what
Yes.
was okay, what
Scripted.
was not okay, very scripted.
Yeah.
Yes. And nobody asked for consent. It was just already the system that was in place.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's
There
what a
was
lot of this tragedy is.
yeah, no questioning.
Yeah.
No, like, slow down the car, let's check the destination. Do we actually wanna go to Ohio?
Mhm. Yeah.
For those of you living in Ohio, I love you. I don't particularly want to go.
I love Ohio. I have lived in Ohio, so I'm sending love to Ohio. I wanna go to Ohio.
For me, Ohio is not the destination. And pick anywhere that you're like, where do I not want to go? That's what I'm talking about. You are on a road trip to somewhere that you just haven't picked, and you are headed on a one-way ticket there with
Yeah.
nobody asking you. And for me, it's very interesting thinking that like it was also a bit about my children. It
Mhm.
was, but not from the like, this is going to be their life. I didn't even have that much perspective. It was
Mhm.
who I am for my children
Mhm.
right now is
Mm.
not who I want to be.
Yes.
I was so angry, I was so exhausted, I was yelling all the time, and that just compounding shame of what is wrong with me that I can't get
Mhm.
my shit together, that I can't be a happy, delighted mom. This is the plan of happiness. Surely I should be loving this. I have everything. I have all of the heterosexual checklist,
Yeah.
right? While not understanding, and this is what Ward talks about in the book, that straight people, especially women, are often cut off from their deepest truths.
Mhm.
Truths like, what do I actually desire? What do I want most? Women are cut off from admitting their exhaustion.
Mhm.
They are cut off from being honest about their rage.
Oh, so much rage, and it comes out sideways at
On
the kids.
yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
And being cut off from dreams.
Yeah.
That is the piece, and maybe that's why I picked Ohio because it was like, that's just not that nowhere no on my bucket list, not in my dreams.
My god, I'm gonna have
I
to take you
know,
to Ohio now.
I
It is
know,
beautiful.
and I'm, like, really hoping when we do, I then come back and do an episode where I'm like, "Everybody in
I
Ohio,
love
I'm
you.
really sorry." So not the best example, okay? We can all agree. I should not have just picked a random state.
You could have
Um,
picked Florida. I don't wanna go to Florida.
actually, this is true. I I'm like, Florida right now, not my favorite with
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the white Christian nationalists. Okay. Um, we
See?
we digress. So
Mm.
the point is we are cut off from our deepest truths and we are on a track. And the track is just like, this is your life. And
Mhm,
no, you are not stopping to go, what kind of life am I actually living?
mhm.
And if this is a life where I can't even be honest with the people I love most or
Yeah.
myself, like, what are we even doing? Right? That is what, right? I think so many people will relate to on this episode is the feeling of like, why am I doing this?
Yes, I think there's a normalization of women lying both to themselves and their partners within these dynamics of heterosexuality where there's generally like a power over dynamic. So in order to stay safe, in order to not be at the receiving end of his wrath or disappointment or
Yep.
whatever. And this is generational. I mean, we're so early on in this experiment of women having the right to vote and the right to have access to money and divorce and all of these things. And so I think we have some generational things we're still
Oh, for
working out.
sure.
So even if you're with a, quote unquote good guy, women still struggle tremendously with putting words to what do I desire? If he knows this about me, would he still love me? Do I care
Yes.
if he loves me or not? Maybe I'm married for the wrong reasons or need to get out of this relationship for whatever reason. But the dishonesty within ourselves
Mhm.
and the misogyny that tells us people
Whew.
shouldn't change their minds. And women, they're so emotional, they're so flighty, they change their minds all the time rather than seeing the beauty that we get new information and we change
Oh,
our minds.
yes. That has been a
And
recent
I have that
development.
internalized misogyny as well.
Yeah. Recent development for you and I learning the beauty of like, I'm an adult. I can change my mind. I can
Mhm.
say, we were going to do this, and now I'm not feeling this. I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
I wanted to add when you said, fearing his wrath or his rage, I also wanted to add his disappointment. Because
Mhm.
that's the whole, even if he's a good guy, if you are with
Yeah.
a partner who is blind to the system and really does just, we just got to stay married,
Mhm.
leaving is, it disappoints them. The
Yeah.
sadness, them going through their own sadness of losing the privileges that they had within that system, which we talked about, men getting to
Yeah.
feel good about themselves because there's a woman that's married to me.
Mhm.
So the takeaway from this section, right, is acknowledging for many of you. Yes, we talked about it through a historical context in the last episode, but make no mistake, this is real present day experiences. Like this is impacting your life right now if you are in a
Mhm.
traditional heterosexual marriage. And in those
Yeah.
marriages, we are often having sex we don't want. Oh my
Mhm.
God, Quinn, as I say that, I'm like that is our favorite thing that we do not have to do anymore.
I know. I know.
So in these marriages, we are having sex we don't want. We're saying yes to
Mhm.
things that we don't actually feel. There, like you said, the lying and the dishonesty that hurts at a soul like integrity level.
Mhm.
We are muting parts of ourselves just to keep the peace. So much of the
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to speak up. And on top of all of that, we take all of that and we call that love.
Mhm.
So, we already talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but the show Dying for Sex, I
Mhm.
think and I wanna vibe with you a little bit about this on this episode because we haven't gotten
Mhm.
to, I went and watched it after Quinn recommended it, and I was like, "Oh my god, this" in so many ways also ties in to the tragedy of heterosexuality and really showing how much the main character has so much in her, so much she wants to feel and be that she cannot even acknowledge to herself at the beginning
Yeah.
of the series. And the journey she goes through, which fascinatingly enough is not possible with her husband,
Mhm.
and instead is facilitated actually best through her best friend.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the main character's name is Molly, and we open with Molly being in a counseling session with her husband and receiving a call from her doctor that her breast cancer is back and it has metastasized. And the husband's like, okay, I got this. Like, I will do this. But there's also the fact that he does not want to have sex with her
Mhm.
anymore. She very much wants to have sex. She has never had an orgasm with another person. And her best friend, Nikki, oh my God,
Oh my
this,
god.
I mean, just a beautiful, messy human shows up for her. And they go through this journey where Molly separates from her husband. They stay married. He keeps her on the insurance because the US
Yeah.
has fucked up medical system. And so that she can get the care that she needs. But it's Molly's process of coming to know herself. There's
Yeah.
a little bit of queer play. There's definitely non-traditional sex as she's meeting these men.
Yes.
All of these really interesting ways of being that I didn't know about, but which is not saying that much, but it's so beautiful watching her grow through all of this. And
Yeah.
in the end, like her path, she wasn't willing to die before she had to die. Like she knew her body was going to die. And so she was like, fuck it, I'm going to live. I'm gonna
Yeah,
live.
and she wasn't willing to die without knowing herself.
Yeah.
That is what that show is about, is it's about, I don't wanna go out having never known and understood what the fuck I am. And that is the tragedy that you and I felt. So we didn't know it at the time, but now what? I'm like almost 6 years out.
Mhm.
You're 5, 4,
4.5? Yeah.
half? Yeah. Looking back now, right? Oh my God, Quinn, what a tragedy. If that had been the amount that we knew ourselves, like the amount of life lived in this last 5 years has been insane. Like I've told you, I feel like I've lived
Yeah.
multiple lifetimes. And that is an incredible gift that when we are put into the narrow lane of this is what's expected of you, this is what the world needs from you, this is what your religion and your country
Mhm.
and what you need to do as a good wife and a good mother and a good woman, we miss out on so much that thankfully, as we're going to get into more, Jane Ward brings forward by being like, this is what queer people are understanding is so crucial to life.
Yeah, because what the queer community is doing is unpacking all of those societal expectations, and it is a process. I think that for some people, they see a gay person or trans come out of the closet and they're like, "Oh, that was so all of a sudden." But no, it was a
Mhm.
process. I have a trans and non-binary niece and nephew, and it's so interesting watching their process. Who they are now is not who they were through the process, and it's the same with you and I in our journeys in our
Yes.
lives. Like where I am now, I hope in another year I don't even recognize who I was,
Oh, I
now in the
know.
future. I hope I continue
Yes.
the process of unpacking and looking at myself and growing.
Yes, absolutely. And it's this acknowledgement at the heart of it of just like the incredibly complex vastness that is a human being. And
Mhm.
that is what we are seeing being stripped away in the US right now politically, this idea that only one way, only one type of person, the narrowing down and in to who gets to exist and be seen as a full human. And
Yes.
y'all, that is a really fucking boring, awful world. I do not
I did not
want.
think you were gonna choose that word. I thought it would be like, "That's cruel, that's evil," but it's just boring.
Yeah, and the reason I use the word boring is because that was a word that Jane Ward uses in the
Mhm,
book. And I thought it was just such a good mind flip for me to hear
mhm.
that what we've been trained to think is the gold standard of relationships,
Right.
a heterosexual marriage with children and you get to be the wife and he gets to be the husband is actually really boring. And why, as we're talking about the dying for sex piece, right?
Mhm.
That's really what most of us are not acknowledging in our lives, that we are just robotically getting up and going through the motions
Yeah,
and not really feeling alive in our experiences.
yeah. And I think that it is true for men and women, and I think the ICE cosplay Gestapo thing happening is men trying to feel alive.
Oh
Like,
my
"We're
gosh.
patriots. We're the good guys. We've got big guns." And on the other side, for the work that we're doing within our communities, we see that hunger for, I want to
Yeah.
feel alive. I want to feel alive in my marriage, or I want to feel alive post divorce. Like it is our birthright. We are here on this earth and we can do a lot. We can do practically anything, any color of hair. We can have children or not. Or, I
Mhm.
mean, you and I, there's not the not option
We're they
anymore.
yeah, we
We
that
have the
choice.
children, but we get to parent in a lot of different ways. And
Yes.
yes, this hunger for life, for
Yes.
mm,
More for
mm.
something. Yes. I love that sound. And what women are trained to do within the heterosexual world is to hold on,
Yeah.
to wait it out, to try another strategy, like just the hoping, the sitting and waiting and hoping that one day he will see you, or one day there'll be progress, one day he'll see you as a human, or one day the spark will come back. And that, at least I think for both of us, and I want to just normalize it for so many women, you are an incredibly vast internal universe being told, hang in there, hold on. It's a very disempowering place to be.
Yeah, I think the point is that we want to encourage women, including ourselves, to be intentional. There's lots of
Yes.
reasons women stay, and staying because this is the work that you want to invest in on purpose. That's a different kind of staying than,
Different energy.
yeah, it's a different energy
Yeah.
because there is consent. There's I'm going all in. It is choosing life. So it's not about
Yeah.
staying or going or, for my post-divorce folks, it's really not about what you choose as much as it is, are you bringing your full self to it, or are you just
Mhm.
following the prescription and the rules that someone else made up, literally made up and told
Yes.
you to do?
Yes. And I think this comes to the heart of what you had said when we were discussing the outline. You'd said, while we didn't actually create this system, right?
Mhm.
We don't want through these episodes falling into the victimhood of like, oh my God, well, I'm part of the system, right? While we didn't create the systems, we do have the responsibility now for how we respond
Mhm.
once we start waking up and seeing the system for what it was. And
Yeah.
I feel like you and I can own clearly that, like, you can respond and change your fucking stars once you start
Yeah.
seeing the system for what it is. And that's really the power of coaching. That was
Mhm.
what we learned through learning how our minds work, how to notice our thoughts, how to notice the feelings, how to notice the actions, to build awareness. Then you can start taking responsibility for the results you're getting in your life and
Yeah.
move into something different.
Yeah. And speaking of Ohio, we have to
I'm going to get I hope I get so many emails. I would love to get, if any of you are in Ohio, just email me. Talk trash to me. Tell me how great Ohio is.
we have to accept where we are. So if we are
Mm,
in Ohio and we want to get into New York, we can't be wishing we were in Texas and saying, I wish I was in Texas. I should be in Texas. It's not fair that I'm not in Texas, because you'll never get to New York until you accept the map and where you are right now.
mm.
And so I hear you saying
Why would
that
we want to be in Texas if we wanted to go
we
to New
don't want to be in
York?
Texas. Don't go to
Okay.
Texas. Don't go to You want to get out of Texas and you want to go to New York. No, I have no idea. But a big part of coaching is like, let's be honest. Like, this is the system.
Yes.
This is what was
Yes.
built. Women have been given by our culture the responsibility of heterosexual repair.
Mhm.
This just is. And fighting it and thinking it's unfair or it shouldn't be, it doesn't help us move forward. And so
Yes.
when we're just honest, this is where we are. We're in Ohio. What's the next step?
Exactly. And this takes me into Jane Ward, what we brought up earlier, just saying so clearly, like, not mincing words, when she was like, straight culture is boring. It is emotionally starved and it is erotically boring. And can we all just have like a sigh? For me, that's actually like a huge like sigh of relief, because when you finally can sit with understanding, like, it's not built to be emotionally connective, it's not built to be erotically engaging,
Mhm.
then you stop spending all that time
Yeah.
trying to explain and really ultimately pathologizing yourself as a woman into, well, I must be messed up and I must be crazy, that this
Mhm.
is not actually satisfying for me.
Yes. Yes, and I'm glad you used the word erotic because I think we're taught in this system that, oh, women need to safeguard sex, men want sex,
Mhm.
and we never talk about eros and erotic energy. And so much of erotic energy is a feminine, wild quality that all of us have access to. But I mean, her quote and this idea that heterosexuality is boring, and I really enjoy heterosexual sex. So it made me kind of excited. I'm like, I like the boring stuff. Well, I can't wait to see what's next. Like,
What's
there's a secret menu. I wanna I wanna see.
Yes! No, that for sure. Yes. That is what I mean by, like, holy shit, y'all. Whoa, there is a whole other secret menu out there.
Yeah.
And her just really being very clear around heterosexuality being a place of performance. When you said eros, erotic energy, the thought that came to mind was like, "Oh my god, this is what men think they're getting when they get a lap dance." And
Mm,
I have learned so much about the inner workings of what strippers, what it's actually like for them and what you're actually experiencing. That is not true eros energy. That is a
mhm,
performance.
mhm.
Eros energy, you know what I'm talking about, Quinn.
Yeah, it cannot be commodified. It can't be
Mm-mm,
sold for a lap
mm-mm.
dance. Yeah.
No, it's not. uh, I mean, maybe there are people who I'm not gonna say never, right? That somebody
Okay,
couldn't
okay.
pay for Eros energy. I haven't experienced it. My Eros energy has come out of deep soul knowing and,
Mhm,
like, being safe with another individual and feeling totally able to open to my desire and my pleasure. And that's what I talk about in previous
mhm.
episodes when I'm like, patriarchy has fucked over men as well because it's given us this menu of like three things and they're all phallic centered. Like, you can suck his dick, you can put it inside you can grab it with your hands.
Then when I was in college, maybe this is a Utah thing, where they called it a titty fuck, where the guy would,
Oh,
like,
yeah, you
kneel
can
on
put it in
top and
between
then
your
your
boobs.
boobs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And her just calling out that, like, it's about performance. It really is not about pleasure. And
Mhm.
especially when it gets into the realm of what many of us were experiencing in our marriages, a sense of obligation, you
Yeah.
know? It's not about pleasure. And I think this is where we go into the like rabbit hole story that you and I wanted to explore a little bit, which was that here, gosh, before I started dating my partner Joe, we would have thought I thought I was having pleasure-centered sex. Like,
Yeah.
mainly I think because I was having sex outside of the marriage idea and the I have to do this because I'm with my husband and there's this power dynamic inherent in like, well, I'm the only person he can have sex with, so you
Mhm.
know, I was actually getting to have sex only when I wanted it. I was not having coercive sex post divorce. And so that felt really good. And it was like, this must be pleasure centered.
I don't know, I wanna push back on that a little bit because you've mentioned that he still kind of felt entitled to your body and would use you in the middle of the night and
Oh yeah, yeah. In
interrupt your
in
sleep,
my
but
yes, in my marriage.
no, no.
Oh, you're talking about my partner.
Yes, I'm talking about your partner.
Oh, this is such a beautiful moment. I love watching my internalized misogyny just be exposed on our podcast.
You're welcome.
I'm like, "No, no, no. That was only in my marriage. No, that was absolutely" okay. So this is why we have Gwen on this podcast, y'all,
She
because
remembers
Quinn
these men.
remembers my life better than I do. And I do have this habit of my brain, yes, thinking the best. No,
Mhm.
you're right. So I did have a lot more sex that was consensual,
Yeah.
but in the partnership that I have mentioned on the podcast, there absolutely was coerciveness, misogyny through the pressuring, the
Yeah.
we're going to do an episode on that, the sexual coercion
Yeah.
through the not wanting to disappoint him, knowing that this is something he wants. It's harder to say no than to just say yes, and maybe I do want it cuz he kind of wants it. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And in that relationship too, that's actually a perfect example in that relationship of how I thought I was getting really great sex that
Mhm.
was pleasure centered.
Mhm.
And now, as we were doing the outline for this episode, in my partnership with Joe, we got to see, you got to coach me through what it actually looks like to start healing. You know, my whole vision of what my pleasure was male centered. And with
Yeah.
Joe, that was not the case when we started dating. And even to this day, it needed to be, for various reasons, more centered on my pleasure
Yeah.
and how difficult and uncomfortable that was for me. Yes, Quinn.
Right, because you would think that I mean, now you'll say, "Yeah, I have 12 orgasms in and then blah, blah, blah," and
Mhm.
you had this idea, with previous partners that you had difficulty coming,
Yep.
that you couldn't come unless it was in a very specific way, and now that you've taken a partner that is able to slow way, way, way down
So slow.
and use that to his benefit rather than I think that men of a certain age, since that's the age group that I
Mhm.
date, they get to a point where phallic centeredness does not function in the same way that it did when they were 20. And some of them automatically want the blue pill and want to, have a hard dick. And that's how they're going to please you. But
Yeah.
there is also this group of men who
Whole
are
other world.
open to like, "Oh, now I wanna pleasure you. I'm so into you that I want your pleasure. I don't want to watch you giving me my pleasure." That they ride the pleasure wave a little bit differently. And I think it's beautiful because it's a way of maturing and growing, and if hard dick is really important to you, that's available pharmaceutically as long as it's consensual. I don't think men should be doing that without talking to their partner first
Mm.
because it's a different kind of erection that lasts longer and it can be painful for the woman. And so I
Yeah.
do think that it needs to be discussed in a relationship. And also to consider that the way the queer community defines sex is so much more vast and varied. And
Yes.
you could ask two different people what sex is, and they may have two different answers.
Mhm.
And so it's just this it is the secret menu. Like, "Oh,
Yes.
there's that?" And I didn't know I could feel pleasure like this. But I think it's important to acknowledge what you went through, which was
To
I
access that other menu. It was like
yes.
Joe was presenting the menu and was like, "We're this menu doesn't work." Like
Yeah.
that the hit a dick, feel good about yourself. Because a lot of my pleasure was from getting my partner off.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
didn't realize how much I was not actually in my body experiencing my pleasure.
Right.
And it did take a lot of working with myself,
Mhm.
learning how to be in my body, learning how to shed, getting my self esteem from those heterosexual ways of this is
Mhm.
what we do, and I get to feel good about myself afterwards because I did the thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And what a and a big reason why we wanted to do this rabbit hole, why it was important to me, is because I talk a lot about mine and Joe's relationship,
Mhm.
and really being clear at this point in the podcast that Joe and I do not, I now realize, have a stereotypical heterosexual relationship or sex life.
Mhm.
Like, we have, I now understand a way more queer way of, and by queer, meaning we treat each other as full, vast humans. We are not playing roles within sex. We are not performing for each other within sex. It really is truly just body sensation, pleasure based connecting
Mhm.
with another human, not you're a dude, I'm a girl, let's have sex.
Yes. So even though it's a man and a woman, so even in a male-female dynamic, you can be opening to
Yes,
having different kinds of experiences at different speeds. And what you said, I think, was so important, how you used to kind of disassociate during sex.
absolutely.
And it's been
Yes.
this process of you speaking up and saying, hold on, like, I just popped out of my body.
I'm
I
not
went
in my
through.
body.
Yeah,
Yeah, that and that even that
yeah,
process is a new experience of starting to realize even in all the pleasure that I thought I was having previously,
mhm,
I wasn't entirely present with my body as much as I was maybe doing from some of my childhood sexual trauma, a
yeah,
go out of my body. I'm still experiencing pleasure, but I'm not really present with you, my partner.
yeah,
And I mean, as we talk about this, I'm just like, yeah, y'all, I am so glad on this episode, like, we are letting you glimpse into the vastness of what you are. Like, I keep discovering more and more and more layers of
mhm,
myself. Like, here I thought, Joe and I had the amount of layers we had uncovered and the amount of new menu items and pleasure. It was like, holy shit, this is a whole different world. Like, we're
mhm,
on, several different planets. And
yeah,
even still, through the process of increased safety and coming to understand myself more, there are
yeah,
new doors and new rooms in my world of eroticism unlocking.
yeah,
So, as we say all of that, that is to come back to the statement by Jane Ward that straight culture is really boring in a lot of ways that many of us may never have even realized.
yeah. Yeah, and we have to think about where did it come from, particularly in the religions. It was the dudes and it was the rules. And within Christianity, it came down through Catholicism mostly and in other religious faiths, it was the dudes. It was all and it was never sex was not
It was
about
never
pleasure.
female centered.
Yeah.
Never, ever.
No, because
It is
women were
always,
property.
yes, phallic centered, male orgasm centered.
Yeah.
So, can we all as women just take a deep, like, oh, I'm not broken
Yeah.
moment? Because you watched me, Quinn.
Mhm,
I had a lot of internalized shame around not being able to come with partners. I
yeah,
never, before I met Joe, had a partner who made me orgasm orally.
yeah,
Like, that was just, I didn't understand what people meant when they said oral was so great because
mhm,
all the dudes that had gone down on me didn't know shit.
right, right,
In playing with this thought that straight culture is boring, the door opens to walk out of our world of self hatred and shame for us as women
mhm,
in being so confused about why do I feel so emotionally starved and erotically like numb or bored
yeah,
in this
yeah.
situation.
We've been talking a lot about women and women's experience in all of this. And I think it's important to recognize not just men's role in what's happening, but the tragedy for men,
Mm.
this prison that we built around them and the rules and the box for them.
Yes. Yes, because, this is the part where we get into, you and I thinking about our sons.
Mhm.
There are men out there that are like actually a lot of men that are coming to this system honestly, like uneducated, not knowing what
Mhm.
is going on, and don't even realize the water they are swimming in, don't even see the
Mhm.
misogyny that is a part of them. That if you came to them and said, "This is what you're doing," they would be like, "It's not me. This is not
Yeah.
this is not a part of who I am, but it is." And in it being a part of them, it has impacts for them as well. One of the first that we had talked about is that men are severely cut off from intimacy with
Yes.
women and also with other men.
Yes, and I think it's important that we look historically how men used to have these homosocial organizations, and now a lot of it, especially with video games coming on, it's a lot of virtual homosocial, so they're not, like, in person. I mean, they're still the football team and things like that, because it used to be far more normalized for men to have physical contact with other men.
And this is where you talked with me post our first part of the episodes about this brilliant insight that you had that World
Mhm.
War II was like this giant homosocial experiment.
Yes, yes, these men, I mean, we're in the Depression in the US, really tough economic times. Men are, a lot of them, this is the hobo culture where men are leaving their families, trying to find a way to support the families. World War II happens. A bunch of them go off to Europe and to the South Pacific, and they're with men like 100% of the time, very few
Mhm.
women involved, right? So that, I mean, the question I was asking myself was, why was it post World War II that women's personalities became a problem for men?
Yeah.
And I really think it was because they had been receiving so much of this homosocial masculine culture. And then they come back in.
To a heterosexual
Yes.
like when we say civilization, the norms that we have
Yes.
all agreed we as humans should be living by, that as we're starting to expose, aren't actually natural
Yeah.
in
Or
a lot of
necessarily
ways.
healthy. Yeah.
Yes.
So my former father-in-law, he served in World War II, never spoke about it. Never.
Mm.
Definitely had trauma around it. And I think as we see our veterans coming back from other wars, we see that you can't go and kill people and see people killed and your buddy dying next to you in a foxhole and not experience something from that. But
Yeah.
these men come back and they're certainly not gonna talk to their wives about it, so these wives and their little problems,
And no support for it
no
either. It's not
support.
like in the 50s men came back to massive support groups. It was like
Mhm.
you did what men do. You went off to war and now you come back and you're going to provide for your family, and I love that this is what we're talking about because this exposes the prison that men live in of I'm
Mhm.
expected to go witness horrors and then come home and just pretend like the trauma and the PTSD that is living inside of my body isn't there.
Yeah, and then they raise the boomers, and the boomers learn the same lessons, and so we come to where we are now, where a lot of women are doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
And they're not wanting to date men who aren't emotionally available or able to express themselves. but generationally, men have learned that that's gay and that's
Mhm.
not masculine. Like they should carry all of it themselves. And I don't think that's what a lot of women are looking for right now.
Well,
We want the full
and
human.
this is really tying in to that Diabolical Lies episode, talking about, are the men okay kind of bit. We'll link it in the show notes. We've talked about it on the podcast before, where she drives home that patriarchy, contrary to the idea that it's great for all men, it actually only concentrates power in the hands of a few men at the very, very top of the hierarchy. And so that
Mhm.
leaves the rest of the men that are trying to live this standard for themselves, right? Of hold it all together, be the provider, don't have any emotions, don't acknowledge your trauma. I mean, when I think of that for my sons, I mean, I
Yeah.
was telling you, Quinn, I was like, I don't want them in a heterosexual world
Yeah.
where I see my teenage son right now so close with his buddies. It is so allowed and so welcomed. And I'm realizing with sadness that once he gets up to a certain age and once he gets married, that will become like a source of divisiveness potentially in
Mhm.
his relationship. There's only so much I can teach him to be prepared to emotionally be able to connect with women when that is the very thing he would get teased and ridiculed and mocked for right now.
Yes.
So we have them in this tight double bind of what am I really supposed to do? I just see it as them like there's not much wiggle room there either
Mhm.
for men who are going to come through like with mental health intact.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to intention. There are gonna be some men who are gonna be intentional when you as a partner come and say, "Hey, I see this bind. I wanna invite you to relax into a new way of being with me." And some men will be all for it, and some it's just gonna scare them, and they're gonna double down on, "No, this is the way I need to be." It
Yeah.
gets to be a process for
And
all of
knowing
us.
the majority of them are probably gonna be in the scared realm
Yeah.
because they are really in a world of where do I go from here? And also in aligning with more of the feminine approach,
Mhm.
they risk the exclusion from the masculine. That is the like, oh God, we have got to change this, which is what Jane Ward at the very end, when she talks about deep heterosexuality, she's like,
Yeah.
we have to make it where, and I do see this in small ways in the culture around men of this, like, where you love women so much that it
Mhm.
becomes a like, and this is, by the way, this is Pedro Pascal right now.
Mhm.
This is that comment of when women are talking about like men who really love women.
Yeah.
That's what we're wanting to see grow. That those are the men that get the parts in the movies. Those are the men that get to be celebrated because they are the men moving through the world showing masculinity can be different. It can look a different way. And oh, you
Mhm.
can actually love and celebrate and treat women as equals and still be respected.
Yes. Yes. I
Mhm.
thought it was really fascinating where Jane points out that a lot of gay men will communicate that if they could choose, they would not choose to be homosexual because of the privilege that they see heterosexual men experiencing, but you talk to homosexual women and they're like, no."
Yeah.
No, we like the water here just fine. And so there may be different experiences
Yes.
for the men and the women based upon the expectations that
Yes.
society has placed and the privileges assigned to the
To the
roles that you
roles
play.
entirely,
Yeah.
entirely. I'd love for you to read the quote that we discussed from page 172
Okay.
that also drives home, and I just loved that Jane Ward showed this
Mm.
because we've seen this resurgence of men really are so different and need to be more masculine and women need to be more feminine, and us not realizing like for so long I've said like, Quinn, I don't think that's the answer, and she finally put into words why that is not the answer.
The normalization of violence and mutual dislike was central to straight culture from its modern inception. And even when this was recognized as a problem, efforts to address it simply reproduced the same binaristic subject object frameworks that undergirded the problem in the first place. The important point here is that while many people remain attached to the notion that embracing men's and women's purportedly unchangeable and complementary differences is the key to heterosexual harmony, this framework has never made a dent in the violence and misogyny that cause straight people to suffer. It is an unworkable foundation on which to build sexual orientation. The suggestion I offer here that straight men consider woman identification or subject subject eroticism is one alternative.
She is calling out so loudly for all of us that this repackaged game that is very big right now in life coaching and in the self-help sphere of men just need to be more masculine, women need to be more feminine, that is actually the very thing that keeps perpetuating the violence, that normalizes
Mhm,
it, and the
mhm,
misunderstandings because, oh, we're just so different. And
mhm.
you emphasizing to me that what we need more of instead of, oh, men and women are so different, is we are all human.
We are
And
so much the same and have a lot of the same needs.
yes, core needs of being seen and understood and having our feelings acknowledged,
Mhm.
which is going to take us later on into, I'm thinking of nonviolent communication.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
exploring that this summer has opened my eyes to like, oh wow, we really are not all that different. We all have
Mhm.
needs that we need met. We all have feelings. And we get so caught up in focusing on the differences that we miss what can bring us together in the humanness of both men and women.
Yes, and I think in the book Nonviolent Communication, the author, he doesn't teach it one way for women and another way for
No.
men. This is human communication where if we can learn to communicate without judgment and more observation and self-focus of this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm feeling, and what I need right now is this, and making a request of our partner, I have been astonished to see how it has changed how the
Game
communication within
changer.
my family, as well as me reflecting on past interactions with partners where I didn't realize it at the time how violent I was being in my communication or that I
Yeah.
was projecting things onto them. And if I could have said, I've observed that you are this way or you communicate in this way, and I feel afraid when you do that. And
Mhm.
I need a partner that I can feel safe with. And could you, and make a request? I
Yeah.
think it would have been a game changer, a game changer. I think this is one of the core skills we need to learn
Yes, because I
is
think
communicate.
most men would say in most marriages, they don't know what to do. They
Mhm.
are just like, I know she's upset, but I don't know what to do. So that is another aspect of, what we're discussing of like, what is the prison that masculinity, that men are being put into in the system of heterosexuality. So to recap a little bit and ground us into this, like the biggest focus coming off the episode that we wanted was like, the system is what's not working. We got to stop focusing on the people within it and attacking the people and
Mhm.
understanding, well, and here's the caveat, the system is working the way it was designed.
Yes, yes, it's working.
Exactly. It's if you want it to be working so that you're actually living a happy, real, like in-depth, fulfilling life, just know that's not how the system was built because it was
Mm-mm.
not made for the people within it. It was made for those structures we talked about in the previous episode. And when we realize that, we start to see the costs for both. That for women, there is these massive amounts of, unpaid labor that we are doing in
Mm.
heterosexual relationships that
Yeah.
ultimately props up capitalism and
Yeah.
allows people in the hierarchies at the very top to profit off of that unpaid labor. There is
Uh-huh.
emotional labor for us as women. There is isolation for both individuals in a heterosexual, typical marriage.
Mhm.
Being cut off from community. Another thing that we wanted to mention was men's suicide rates being what they are, the men's
Mhm.
loneliness epidemic, because they cannot have that homosocial support that they have in the past. And men's self esteem in the past being from being able to consume and control or own women through marriage, that is now being taken away through women not subscribing into
Mhm.
those systems. And that's where we get the incel cultures, the radicalization of men that we're seeing right now. Like you said, the ICE going to the streets dressed up. What are we doing?
Yeah, you mentioned that, these men, they can't go have these homosocial relationships. There's no place for that. I kind of question that because I think they could, but they're going to have to do something. The women aren't going to organize it for them. So, like
Mhm.
men complaining about they're so lonely, we have in our mind, well, then go fix it, go be with men. But the culture has shifted to where that's that's not typical unless it's queer culture. And so, yes, men
Yes.
need to be with men, but not the kind of go to the Elks Lodge and get drunk.
Yes.
Don't go out on the golf course. Like the family needs community. And yes, men can get support from other men, but it's not, I'm going to go and I'm going to leave all of this extra labor for my partner and the
Mhm.
children. It's a different way of looking at all of the dynamics. Like, okay, if this human needs contact with other men, let's get him that and let's bring in community so the woman is not, isolated. Uh, am I making sense? Like there
Absolutely.
needs to be a new exploration. I don't have the answers.
And this is the gift inherent in the terrifying experience those of us in the US right now are in, of
Yeah.
we are watching the system collapse.
Mhm.
And the way forward from that is to go, whoa, this wasn't actually working. Because exactly, it's like, where are men? Actually, what men need is places to feel and talk about trauma and to actually rehumanize themselves and get back in touch with their feminine sides and become
Yeah.
full humans. They are not going to get that in a system that's like, go out with your buddies, go to the football game. We are all waking up to the capitalist consumeristic society that told us this little unit of you, your husband, and your kids living in a home with all your shit is going to be enough. And
Mhm.
realizing we have replaced the village and
Yeah.
communities with that. And really, what that's led to is not genuine happiness or mental health or actual connection. It just has
Yeah.
created a machine that makes people buy more things.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, here you and I, we are capitalists, as in, like, we are owners.
Mhm.
So we own the goods of our labor. And this is the system that we're in. Like, we are in Ohio. And so here we are. But for years now, you have been obsessed with this idea of creating conscious community. That
Yeah.
the challenge of you trying to raise your 3 boys on your own or even with your partner, it wasn't something that was sustainable for you. You needed
No.
more support, and so you started looking at what's a different way, and you found there are a lot of people, not necessarily in the queer community, but in the world at large that are creating conscious
Communities.
communities.
Yes. Yes. And this is where we get to the heart of what we're going to dive into with Jane saying, this is what queer communities who have had that world stripped away
Mhm.
through the lack of the privilege, through the attacks, through the othering
Mhm.
for generations, decades, and us taking on the individual roles. And that's the potential with your partner of going, neither of us are happy. This system was not built for our mental health, for us to thrive. It was built for us to be sad, locked in our homes and buying a bunch of shit. TVs and cars and do we want to do it a different way? And this is
Yeah.
where we get to talk about the beautiful experience in the book of Jane Ward talking about really giving us a peek into the queer outsider's gaze of
Mhm.
letting us see in that chapter where she talks about their experiences of their sadness watching straight people's lack of emotional honesty, their
Yes.
sadness in watching the lack of real connection and the types of performative interactions and parenting. They talk about how the worst thing possible is going to like a gender reveal party with a bunch of people in the burbs. and
Like, we're
I couldn't
celebrating the baby's genitals? Like, what?
what? Like that was just so refreshing to me because I was like, "Oh my god, I agree." Like that's what I've emerged into is like I cannot do
Mm.
the like super lame small talk where we're all just smiling and pretending where there's
Yeah.
no truth telling, there's no realness, it's all a performance. And them really and it's in To Wong Fu. It's the same thing in that movie where they see these women in abusive relationships, disconnected, not living full lives, and they are like,
Mhm.
"Hey, let
Mhm.
me help you." And this is wink,
Yeah.
wink. Once again, I'm going to refer back to Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach. This is what Untamed is talking about, that there is this world of living wild and living connected and living
Mhm.
where your people are your people, right? I
Yeah.
love the way she talks about how Abby and her are like this island with their family. And then I just
Mhm.
saw on Instagram that they were like the parade heads for a pride parade. I think it was in Denver, maybe. And
Hmm.
I just was like, oh, or that she had a reel where she was in like the lesbian bus with all the other lesbian
Oh,
women. Did you see that
yes.
one?
Yes.
And I was just like, oh my God. Like they are not isolated. They are not alone. They are in a community and a world that celebrates them, that celebrates expression, and that
Mhm.
celebrates freedom. And having Jane talk about it that way, the amount of queer wisdom, right, that
Mhm.
is already here and the alternate paths that are already crafted that we now as individuals get to realize, oh my God, there's another way out there. And I am an adult and I get
Mhm.
to choose again.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's interesting that Jane Ward herself, she would not consider herself, like, born queer.
Mm-hmm.
She cultivated her queerness, and when I read that and the same with Glennon Doyle, there's a chapter in
Yeah,
Untamed where someone refers to her as having been born that way, and she's like, I think it's a little bit different. Like, why can't we just say the system that and the way
I
I
was,
want to express myself, this is what I choose. And so it's been interesting my own path choosing to cultivate my own queerness. I'm self-partnered right now, but like having looked at the tragedy of heterosexuality and starting to normalize and think about what would it be like to love a woman or to receive
Mhm.
love from a woman in the way that women love each other. Like
Yeah.
there's a whole way of being. Like I don't want to try and convince you to stay in relationship with men if that doesn't feel good, but I'm also not here to convince anybody to be in relationship with women if that doesn't feel
Yeah.
good.
It's us talking and using the word queer as a contrast to heterosexuality's system. And
Mhm.
it's so much bigger because I do want to respect that queer people, like, as much as we're saying, like, they have the answers, they have the system, like, that does not mean we go to all of them and we're like, "And now teach all of us." Like,
Right?
no, this is the same thing with, like, not going to people who are Black and being like, "Teach me about racism, teach me how to treat you right." Like, no, we all have our own personal journeys to
Yeah.
go on, to open to what I see as this, like, this vision of interacting from the world, from these things that she lists as the queer wisdom, which
Mhm.
we'll dive into right now because I think we got to kind of explain, like, what the queer culture offers when we're talking about it in this way. And one of
Yes.
the things she mentioned was that it offers emotional negotiation, a
Mhm.
communicating of needs and desires openly and reducing shame.
Yes.
Oh, it's just like such a sigh of relief at
Right?
this. Yes,
To let go
that
of the idea that there's a right way your body
yes,
should look or be, a right or wrong way to have sex, or what feels good to you that shouldn't feel good to you. This should to let go of that
yes,
and
yes.
sink into curiosity.
And not only, like you said, eh, open to all body types, but I loved that part where she's like, actually, for she was talking about specific lesbian women who were writing about, like, loving their partner's scars, loving the weight on their partner's bodies. Like, what
Mhm.
an incredible world to live in, a place where a human is not just a sum of parts that
Mhm.
hopefully fits a prescribed mold, and
Mhm.
instead the humanizing.
Yeah.
um, I love when she talked about the non-binary ways of loving. It is not a either you're a man or you're a woman. It is that you can play with those roles all you want. And I love when she's like, we definitely get kinky with our own, like, we love playing with masculinity and femininity and trying it on, and but we don't have to live in those roles. We
Mhm.
understand it is not about the genitals, it's about the energy.
Mhm.
And that just opens up the amount of expression and experiences that you can have because you're no longer just shaming, shaming, shaming.
Right, right. You can let go of the need to judge. I just want to take a deep breath when I think about that since I was raised in such a judgmental culture
Mhm.
that said it was, all loving. And so to come out on the other side where it's like, you don't need to judge anybody else. You don't even need
Mhm.
to judge yourself. We just look at what is.
Yeah. Taking what I think is just a way more humanistic approach to people.
Yeah.
You and I discussed some of the things we loved about it is that, there's so much more range for what masculine energy gets defined as, right?
Mhm.
In the world, often masculine energy is like the mansplaining, the alpha male, the violent, the overbearing.
Mhm.
And this contrast, which we noticed recently on one of our community calls, right? That
Mhm.
actually what women were talking about liking in some of the masculine figures was this more calm, grounded, like,
Mhm.
integrity, loves the humans. can also be sensual and sexy and dropped into his body, knows how to move his body, right? That was the
Mm.
Patrick Swayze part and the Pedro
Yeah.
Pascal. Like, rather than being forceful, he can do both. And that's what I've been the
Mhm.
most obsessed with in my partnership with Joe is that I have found for myself, I can no longer play a binary role just to make my partner feel good about his masculinity by me always being in the feminine.
Mhm.
Bleh! I'm way I am way too I've got a lot of fierce, fiery masculinity that likes to come out and play. And if I have a partner
Yeah.
that needs me to always be in a role for him to feel safe, that's just not going to work. In
Yeah.
the queer culture, there is more creativity, there is more expression, there is more honesty, more aliveness.
More color, more glitter. But yes, it all is this self-expression. It's, again, releasing the rules. And this isn't,
Mhm.
I mean, we're painting with kind of a big brush, the queer
Big, big
community,
brush.
right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
there are
Or
others that are very understated, or the women that, cut their hair in a certain way and they're not
yes.
flamboyant.
And I love you bringing that in because that drives home the point even more. That makes me think of a reel I'd seen the other day of two more mask lesbians,
Mhm.
like, being like, people telling them you don't look gay because they don't dress, in more flamboyant stuff, and
Mhm.
them owning and kind of being like, this is what gay looks like. Like, it's this kind
Mhm.
of radical acceptance of your self-expression is what it is.
Yeah, and it gets to
It
change. It gets to grow with you.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love opening the gates to what's possible. What's possible
Mhm.
if I wasn't worried about what other people thought? What's possible if I didn't have the rules? Like, before I knew the rules of how to dress, how was I dressing? Before I knew I was
Yes.
supposed to be quiet, how was I speaking? How was I moving? What was I
Yes.
naturally drawn to? And I
Yes.
think those seeds are still there.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, you and I have been through incredibly intense oppressive systems, as have
Mhm.
many people in the queer community. And in that space, having those seeds tried to be squashed out. And ultimately, as we've both realized, oh no, they're still there. They may be buried pretty
Mhm.
deep and you need to bring them out in the sunlight, but they will blossom with the nurturing.
Yeah.
Which takes me to where I want to kind of close out and end the episode, which is giving these 4 areas for those of you listening to this episode that are like, "Oh my god, yes, I want this. How do I move? What are the
Mm.
next steps?" Like, clear areas to really I'm thinking of it as like these are the exit ramps.
Yeah. Yeah.
From the highway of heteronormative, just play the roles, be part of the
Mhm.
system, keep it going. How do we change that, especially right now in America when I hear so many people saying there's so much fear? What is going to happen next?
Mhm.
How can I help right now? We felt like these were 4
Yeah.
areas that are incredible. So the first is naming the system.
Yeah.
And in naming the system, you reclaim your personal sanity.
Yeah. We really claim the knowledge that this system was not created for us. It was created with this power over functionality, the assumption that women are property, and then it was given the stamp of approval from these religious structures. And even if you continue to live with religion in your life, you get to grapple with that, but to be really honest about, this is what is, and it's not, I am not the problem. I'm not
Mhm.
going to take on the problem of the system. I'm going to own my response to the system.
Yes. Yes, beautiful. The second one is in owning your response, you gotta learn the skills. the tools to be able to call out the system without destroying the humans within it. And
Yeah.
this is nonviolent communication. This is
Mhm.
the book by Marshall Rosenberg. I decided after doing our summer camp this summer, I was like, this is what I'm going to do every summer in the community. It will be
Mm.
diving. And even for those that have had it the years before, it will be diving back in because, as you said so poignantly when we were discussing this earlier, I was like, oh, we've really lost the ability to communicate nonviolently. And you said,
We've never had it.
and I was like, "Oh my god, you are so right." We in a at least in the US, we have never had the ability to speak non-violently in this country, and once you read the book, you'll understand what it looks like. It's so wild, right, Quinn? It's
Mhm.
so simple and yet so not how we communicate in our world.
Right. It has rocked my world in the best of ways. I am questioning so many things, wanting to apologize from the bottom of my heart for the times that I've spoken violently when I thought I was just speaking my truth. I think this skill is really, really important. And another author who does this really well is Adam Grant, and he has a book called Think Again. And it's
Mm,
all about talking to people who you disagree deeply with from a place of curiosity rather than trying to give them more information or more research or more facts, because we all know that in this moment, facts don't fucking matter to the
nope.
people that want to believe certain things. But what does matter is when they feel heard, they feel listened to,
Yes.
that and you have a relationship of trust, to use the Mormon missionary term, having a relationship of trust to ask them to take the next step, which is to be open to a different way of thinking
Way.
about things or to think critically about things that perhaps they're not thinking about right now. And that's true for, the things we're going through in our country, as well as the things you're going through in your relationships.
Yeah. And trust is what is being obliterated right
Yeah.
now. Trust in our systems, trust in each other.
Hmm.
And I've really seen how do we build that? How do we rebuild that? How do we you have to have the language to be able to de-escalate the
Hmm.
violence of all the fear happening from the destruction of the trust.
Yeah.
Our third exit ramp is letting go of the script, making
Hmm.
room for something truer for yourself, and doing that through, as you said earlier, you hinted at the getting curious with yourself.
Yes. We have been raised to devalue what we bring, quote unquote, to the table in a relationship. And a
As
woman
women.
reached, yes. But when a man partners with a woman, he lives longer, he makes more money, he's healthier. I mean, so many good things. And it doesn't come from her bringing a paycheck or something that can be put into an accounting system in a business. But what you bring that has been termed weakness, or they are entitled to your magic and your energy, they're not entitled to it. And it is so valuable. Who
Mhm.
you are, your wild woman ways of being, our deep intuition, and our willingness to heal, because women
Yeah,
don't just heal themselves. As we heal the collective.
absolutely.
And I think we've seen it time and time again in different wars where, I mean, it was the truth in Liberia and Somalia and Rwanda, where horrific things are happening. And yet at the end, it's the women that are able to metabolize. And I don't understand
Fucking
fully the
amazing.
magic of being a woman, but it's fucking incredible. So when
Yeah.
we start taking what we are and self centering and
Yes.
asking ourselves, what do I desire? What feels good in my body? How can I awaken pleasure? How can
Yes.
I heal myself? I mean, everyone thrives. Everyone thrives. But
Yes.
you need to thrive. It
Yes.
is imperative that the women thrive. Imperative.
Absolutely. And that's really what when we're saying let go of the script, it is let go of all these expectations and standards that you were taught to have for yourself through heterosexuality and instead recenter yourself as the
Mhm.
very center of your life. Where so many of us as women, especially raised in religion, have been fucked over is men need to decenter themselves somewhat. Like it's for men, it is
Mhm.
a moving out of that privilege and seeing the humanity in women and being able
Mhm.
to focus and like hold space for all of that. But for us as women, we are so good at decentering ourselves, at
Mhm.
being everything for everybody else but ourselves. And the answer in healing this system is that we step in, we step up, we go, what I have is so important. I'm not going to let it just get buried or slip away. And
Mhm.
that really comes to this point that for so many of the women listening, they're in the stay or go space, right? Of understanding some men will rise
Mhm.
to this call, but you cannot make that your strategy.
Yeah.
And that is why this work right now of considering divorce is in so many ways so important because right now, and it's like catching the vision of doing this work of figuring out this piece when people are saying, what can I do in the world right now? This is a huge piece of it
Mhm.
is navigating. And if you are with a partner that does not want to rise, then leaving like Quinn and I did and building a new world, which we have done for our children, for ourselves. We have become the change we want to see in the world.
Yes. And I think for some women who don't have community and aren't sure if they can rise, one of the ways that I've been able to build myself is getting out into the community and
Yes.
volunteering, whether it's handing out boxes of food that's going to go bad from a food rescue or volunteering in the ER. There are places that you can discover more of yourself
Yeah.
by having it reflected back to you by the people that you
Mhm.
go out into community and support and serve. And that has been a way that I build the community. I'm feeding my community. I'm caring for my community. But being in the community shows me so much more of me as I
Mhm.
try to become more and more full of myself.
Yeah. And that takes us to our final exit ramp, which is kind of this culmination of having humanity for all humans, ultimately, including ourselves. And I loved you bringing in the community piece because how do we do that? We get out there and we
Mhm.
get to know the people, we get to know the humans. And
Mhm.
within the heterosexual tragedy, right? It is very isolating. You're not, it's just you and your partner and raising your kids and maybe the people you see at your kids' sports events. But more now than ever, I think for many of us that were raised in this, that find ourselves in this system, tapping into the community and volunteering in the ways that you can
Mhm.
is it's a double piece. Not only does it, like you said, show you more of yourself, but it also shows you the humanity in the people across from you. Going
Mhm.
to the protests that I've gone to this year has
Yeah.
strengthened so much my belief in humanity, my trust that there are actually thousands of people in
Mhm.
my city, in my country that believe in kindness, in love
Yeah.
for others, in letting others have full expression. We
Mhm.
also wanted to plug here at the end, you know, many of you may not know, but there is a what would you call them? The working family party? What would you call it, Quinn? A
It
third
is a
option?
new political party that is trying to get the politicians to listen, but to focus on working families and
Yeah.
small donations, not billionaire funding,
Yep.
because both parties here in the United States, the Democrats and the Republicans, they're being funded by the same people,
Mhm.
and they have co-created the shit show that we are in.
Yep.
And so we are trying to find new kinds of community. Neither one of us have been to one of their gatherings, but there's enough interest and
Yeah.
spark in it that we're
There's
going to
enough
go and check it
seeing
out.
yeah, and seeing who the people are that are involved, I'm
Mhm.
like, "Oh, these are the people that it's diverse. It's
Mhm.
people that understand and are talking about what it actually feels like to live in this system. They are still in
Mhm.
it, they are not removed." So, we wanted to put that out here because I have been trying to look into more options to actually politically become involved. I'm actually signed up for a couple of theirs, have a working families welcome intro thing that's happening this month. So I'll be reporting back a little bit about what I'm seeing there. But that has given me a lot of hope because I do think we need a third party. I don't think,
Yeah.
I know. We
Yeah.
need another option on the ballot. Also, within this, having humanity for all humans and talking about community, this is such an incredible opportunity to talk about my community, the community that Quinn is a part of, and how in that community we have been able I'm so excited to announce it's been like 8 or 9 months now that we've
Yeah.
actually had the community going, which has allowed me the opportunity to see women who came in months ago, really watching them go through their journeys and watching us heal together as women in that community.
Yeah.
The programming and the lies and the internalized misogyny, it's shedding, like, right, Quinn? Like, right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, we get to call it out in each other because it's one thing to say, I want better friends or I need more support, but to go out and cultivate those
Mhm.
friendships and then what do we do? What do we spend time talking about? Are we going to go bowling? Are we going to go for a drink? This is a beautiful place where you can drop in, you're immediately welcomed, you're working on the same thing everybody else is in a way that is expressed in so many different
Yeah.
ways, the way everyone applies it, the way we come together to celebrate each other. It's an easy up level without a lot of
Yes.
effort.
Yeah, and just an incredible way to if you find yourself unable to because I remember being a stay-at-home mom, getting out in
Mhm,
my community would have been a thing. So there are options. There are online places. There are ways to connect in with community.
mhm,
And I love that the way, when you say that calling it out in each other, what we mean by that is the misogyny doesn't just keep playing between us. Like we talked about in the last
mhm,
episode of women, whining and being upset about their husbands, but never actually doing anything, getting
mhm.
together and talking about it. And then just everybody stays married. No, this is a community where, and the calling it out is when we see, makes me think of a woman who this week was going through something really difficult and posted and was really getting down on herself. And the other women being like, we know you, you know you. She'd gotten kind of sucked back into the pain of her husband not liking her decision and
Mm,
believing the self-hatred and it's me. And having those
yeah,
women be like, no, no, we know you. We've seen you. This is
yeah.
who you are. And calling her back to herself. It's an incredible thing to witness.
Yeah.
And
And I do wanna point out that there are women in there who are months out from their divorce, and they still find fellowship in this
mhm,
community because this is no small thing to walk away from a heterosexual partnership.
Mhm.
And so it's pretty significant that some of us do that. And for those of us in my sphere of influence who have made that choice to leave a marriage or our partner left us, I think there's still a great
Yeah.
deal of healing available in the skills that we're learning in there, the coaching, the community, the friendships, the love, the support. There's so much there for lots of different kinds of women. I want to make
Uh,
sure that you tell them how to get more information about that.
yeah, the easiest way is to text stay or go community, all one word, to 33777. I also just have to say, when you said it's, no small thing to leave a heterosexual marriage, I realized I like had this like, oh my God, because for the women staying that are in the community, I was like, it's no small thing to stay in your marriage
Right.
and move it out of the heterosexual binary we are just roles as well.
Tragedy.
So
Yeah.
this is like an area where it's not just a stay or go thing. It is all of us acknowledging that the heterosexual tragedy affects us whether we stay or we go. And if you're
Mhm.
staying and you're seeing this and you're seeing how it is hurting both you and your husband, the
Mhm.
two of you leaving it, also, you are going to need a lot of community. It makes me think of the
Yeah.
women in the community now that are staying and
Mhm.
receiving so much support as they are
Mhm.
navigating
Yeah.
that. We had a woman this week just went in with a new couples therapist, and I'm thinking of one a couple weeks ago where they went to a big couples event, and yet here is where they feel the connection with other women moving out of the programming, right?
Mhm.
The women in this community are really shedding the programming of what the heterosexual normative way of being is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
this book was incredible, y'all. As you can tell, we took 2 fucking giant episodes to to just really dive into it. There's so much more if you loved the episodes. I cannot recommend enough going and getting the book. Jane Ward has the most amazing analysis and really manages to bring it all into that message of hope at the
Mhm.
end that I loved. This message of there's a different way to do it. And there are these communities and worlds already built that are doing it. So, yeah, so, so happy we got to talk about this. So grateful to have you on the podcast for 2 full episodes. Quinn, you spoil us.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
For those
Thank
of
you.
you listening on Quinn's, just so you know, she is soon going to be off the market for coaching. I just have to vibe
Yeah.
about her because she is about to dive into her schooling. You got accepted.
Yep. I'm going to be starting my nursing degree this August. And, it was in talking about community to you a few years ago. I think it's been 2 or 3 years ago now when I realized the thing that I would want to bring to community is care for people at the beginning of life and at the end of life. I wanted to be
Mhm.
standing at those portals. And that and the shit show of female reproductive health is what finally pushed me into I'm going to stop complaining. I'm going to
And
do
do
the thing.
something.
I'm going to do the
Yeah.
thing. I don't know where this path will ultimately lead me, but let's just stop fucking around and just do the thing. Each
Mm.
one of us knows
Mm.
our next step. It doesn't have to be a big thing, whether it's a conversation or a decision that we've been putting off and we know what we want to do, you know. Let's fucking go.
That's my best friend, y'all. I have her private number. Yeah, so immensely proud of you. So grateful to be going through this journey with all of you. Like I said, she will soon be off the market for doing one-on-one coaching because she's focusing
Yep.
on that. So if you are one of our post-divorce women looking for a coach that is going to rock your socks, Quinn is your woman. You can email her at
Quinn, Quinn, at postdivorceglowup.com.
And for the rest of you that are still in the thick of it, know that I am excited and ready to meet you on the 90-minute sessions or even on one-on-one deep dive coaching with me. You can go check those out on my website, stayergocoaching.com. All right, y'all. Take care this week.
All right.
Ah!
Bye-bye.